So that was kind of a brief video on how the development team worked on coming up with this new bracket. And so the basis of the bracket was the SLX, which has now been around for more than a few years. And we wanted to keep all the things that we knew were great and improve the things that need to be improved. And I'm going to talk about those as we go along. So the development team worked hard, and the nice thing that I've been involved with since I joined over with Henry Schein is we have engineers that actually listen to orthodontics, which I've been on numerous development groups over the years, and typically what happens is the engineers come up with an idea and they ask for feedback, and then they say, well, we're already too far along to change it, all right? And you're nodding your head there. It's exactly what happens, right, Jeff? So in this case, exactly the opposite. They had some ideas and then first went to a few of us and then increased the circle to make sure that we hadn't missed anything, including orthodontic team members, on what was good, what needed to be improved, and what the process might be to make their lives easier. Because we all know at the end of the day, if the team is happy, we're a lot happier. And so all that feedback happened along with input from people that worked within Henry Schein in different aspects, because we all look at these things differently. Otherwise, you know, we kind of get stuck in the situation where the two blind men are holding different parts of the elephant. Everyone's heard that story, right? So we like to get input from all the different things in order to maximize the benefit when we go to manufacturing. So some things that we knew. We knew that people wanted a clear bracket, all right, which we did not have. We knew that we wanted something that was a complete system. That was the feedback that we got. So people had all the tools they needed. They wanted it a consistently locking mechanism. One of the most frustrating things that used to happen to me before was you'd have a patient almost finish treatment, then a slide would open, the tooth would be about a foot away from the wire, and you have to sit there and go, sorry, you can't get your braces off. We got to back up a wire, get that tooth back in place, but we'll get there back as fast as we can. And then you kind of put the rush on it and change wires as quickly as you can. Next thing you know, you pop a bracket off. And we all know those stories, right? So I don't have to go into too much detail. So we wanted a bracket mechanism that if the door was open, it was open, and when it was closed, it was closed. And so the other thing that we knew is that the SLX bracket had the benefits of individual tooth widths, and we wanted to maintain that as well. And so in an aesthetic bracket, we need to make sure that the slide was the same width as the metal in order to maintain that effectiveness. And so that's exactly what we've done. So we kept the good parts of the legacy SLX bracket. And those good parts are, first of all, this base. So those of you who have used it know that compared to a mesh base, the retention here is so much better, and the adhesive cleanup is so much easier because of these adhesive guardrails. So what happens is the adhesive squirts out the side, and it's easier to clean without dislodging the bracket from the position that you put it on. This compound concave base exactly fits about 90% of the teeth. And so placement is so easy, it's almost as someone described to me like they know where to go. These pegs are better than the mesh because you don't get voids and whatnot. And so the key to adhesive strength is to make sure that you have a continuous film surface adjacent to both things that are being glued together. And that doesn't matter if you're putting laminate on a table or putting brackets on a tooth. So this allows that continuous adhesive service and tends to have fewer debonds. We wanted the undertie of the wings to be appropriate to put both chains, ligature ties, whatever else you might want to use for auxiliaries, and have that comfortable and ample, so they didn't change that. The individual tooth widths, as I said, for rotational control and leveling and aligning. one of the reasons that we are able to accelerate these intervals between visits is because the wires actually express what they're intended to do, and so they don't need as much time in between each appointment. So we're able to do that and make it comfortable for the patient for the next wire change and move along more quickly. So all these things together, along with the accuracy of manufacturing. One of the things that has been very impressive along the way with the SLX bracket is the consistency of manufacturing, and so we don't end up with multiple finishing visits in order to accomplish what we need to do. And so all those things together were the things that we wanted to keep. The things that we didn't like so much and needed improvement were the door mechanism on the original bracket, and quite frankly, there was so many visual lines were easy to make the bracket to place, made it not quite as aesthetic as some of us would like. And so the new bracket has a very smooth surface, right? Everything's rounded, so it's almost stealthy. But we kept the individual tooth widths, we kept the concave base, but we added, if you notice, this bevel all the way around. And that bevel allows for easy removal both of the metal and the ceramic bracket. And so that is a nice benefit. And if you notice, the door mechanism actually goes all the way to the edge of the bracket. So the effective width of the bracket is actually even a little bit more than the SLX was, even though the bracket itself is the same width. The slide mechanism is really unique. There are springs that are 3 times the width of a human hair that are internal to the door. And so as that slide mechanism opens and closes, with a very gentle twist, the door propels open and locks in an open position. And as soon as you start it closing, it propels closed and stays in that closed position. And so it doesn't inadvertently open, or even worse, when the staff is trying to put the wires in, you don't get it inadvertently closing halfway and they have the wire 2/3 of the way in, they got to fiddle and get the wire in. So it's more comfortable for the patient on both aspects. The instruments that we designed to go along with it, and for any of you who have heard Luis speak, which is probably about everybody, he is the master at taking the complex and making it simple. And so these instruments, depending on whether you like the traditional where you hold it to hold the bracket or the reverse spring that holds the bracket for you, these function both as a bracket holder when the staff member hands it to you. They also have the grooves in there for a motion delivery instrument, and on both ends of the instrument you'll notice that they have these millimeter gauges, so you can also use it as a bracket height tool. So all these things are in one instrument, so you can eliminate all those instruments on the tray and consolidate down to just a few, which also, you know, reduces overhead in some manner because the sterilization time doesn't take as long. You don't have to maintain as many instruments and all the other things. As I said, it's just a gentle twist. Once it's open, it stays open because of the spring design. When it's closed, it stays closed. And so that propel of the slide makes a huge difference chairside. We knew from the comparisons with SLX that one size did not fit all. So we maintained those individual tooth widths. And so we have wider brackets on the centrals and cuspids. We have medium on the premolars and the narrow ones on the lower incisors and the upper laterals. And what that does is effectively maintains the inter-bracket width so that the high technology wires can work to their most efficient manner. Right? If we change those inter-bracket widths, then what happens is those wires are working, but not in the manner that they were designed. This width of the door is huge. So we now have reduced that 8 or 10 week interval at the beginning down to 4 to 6 weeks. for each of those small wires because the rotations come out right away, which makes it very nice. As opposed to a bracket that may look that wide, but the door is very narrow, you don't get that rotational control, and so that's why you have all the issues finishing. We know that the slot depth is important for multiple reasons. So the accuracy of the slot depth is huge. When you do a bend in the wire, you anticipate that wire performing properly, right? If there's variation between one bracket and the next bracket, how deep the slot is, what you're going to find is slight differences in in-outs as well as rotations that can be a little bit confusing clinically because you make a bend, assuming what's going to happen, they come back and go, oh, now I got to do something the other way to undo some of the unwanted consequences. And so with the manufacturing technique for the SLX 3D, that accuracy is spot on. And so all of us recognize these kind of wires. That's what my wires used to look like when they were finished. And they don't anymore. And they don't because of all these designs that are built in. So the other thing we don't have is multiple torques. So the idea for having high torque and low torque and medium torque was to compensate for two things: the inaccuracy of the bracket manufacturer, but also because you're pulling class 2 elastics to class 3 elastics and you want to compensate for those changes. Since we are doing sagittal first, we start all these patients on a class 1 platform. Since they're starting on a class 1 platform, we use far fewer elastics during the course of active treatment. If we don't have to pull all those rubber bands, we don't need all the compensatory torques in the brackets. So I only use one standard set for every patient, and occasionally need to make a little adjustment in the wire for very specific individuals. These brackets are so smooth that they're almost stealthy. Everything is rounded, and that's only possible because of the design and manufacturing processes that are used. And so you don't have any sharp edges, including the hooks, which is nice. We've managed to maintain the base structure like I talked about. So the cleanup is quick, but the placement is also very simple. And both the metal and the clear are interchangeable with each other. And so we have the same tooth to slot base depth on every bracket. So it doesn't matter if you use clear upper 3 to 3 and then go to metal, or go clear all the way back, whatever it happens to be. You don't have to worry about offset bends and whatnot because you've changed from a metal to a clear, which is nice. The hooks are still integrated, so you don't have the problem of loose hooks or having to replace hooks along the way. Also are more comfortable than the traditional ball hooks, so you don't get the irritation of the lips. And placing it, because these brackets are so stealthy, they came up with an entirely new paint system in order to market it. So these grid lines on the bracket serve two purposes. One, they are color-coded to match the color codes of the brackets. The other thing is this horizontal line is the slot, all right? So you don't have to visualize in the bracket where the slot might be going. This is exactly over the slot. This is the long axis of the crown, and the intersection of the two is the FA point, which is where the bracket is designed to be placed, just like Andrews talked about so many years ago in the 6 keys. And so it's very visually easy to place these, and then those lines come off as soon as they brush their teeth. Soon we will also have, for the first time, ceramic 6s as self-ligating. So for those patients with big, broad smiles, you'll be able to have upper molar brackets all the way back. And that's going to be a nice feature to have. And they're going to be designed exactly the same way. So it's not just one change in the bracket. What we've done is combined all the good things from the SLX and the new features of the SLX 3D. So the twist opening, the staff that have tested out love it, and it's a very gentle thing. You don't have to force it in. It covers the full width. It's very smooth, and they have the integrated hooks and the same nice tie wings as we had before. And so it's the whole package. We have new packaging, which makes it really nice for the team for delivery purposes. We have various and sundry packages. So this would be a one-patient kit where you can have, a combination of clear and metal that are placed in there, and when you open it, it's ready to go. And these kits are really nice because they have a little magnetic closure system on them that holds the door closed. So that would be a single patient kit. You can have a bulk order, if you will, and so the clear come with 5 in the kit. This also has a little magnetic closure mechanism here, as well as the metals come in a 10 bracket kit. You'll notice that the clear ones have white packaging and the metal ones have black packaging, so that's consistent throughout. We have this, which is really nice. One of the things that you can do is also have a system where you can preload. I think I have that coming up. So here's the metal bracket with a 10-pack kit. And this is what we use chairside. So you have one that doesn't have a cover on it, but we've been testing these, and what my staff can do is the night before load the brackets in here, and a combination of whether it's clear or metal, depending on what that patient has requested. And then when they close this magnetic lid, they're we put the adhesive on the night before, and the adhesive is completely light sealed. So they don't have to go then and apply the adhesive chairside. And we tested this base material, because traditionally what we had was some sort of tape, and you'd go to lift up the bracket and half the adhesive would stay on that bracket card. So it's sticky enough to allow that adhesive to have the bracket in place so they don't bounce all over, but at the same time leaves the adhesive on the bracket when they go to deliver it. So this makes it a lot more efficient. They do it just before they leave the night before, and they're ready to go. These are the bulk cases. These are designed if you carry the brackets from office to office. The top level is going to have the ones that are open, and down below there are going to be your reserve. And there's a black case and a white case, again, for metal brackets and clear. So the mass storage, they have it here. You can go look at it. It makes it very nice for the staff to be prepared. And for those of you who actually care about numbering, they came up with a new numbering system, so when your staff is ordering it, it actually makes sense. And so you can see this is, this numbering system is very simple for them to keep track of, and that way they know if they've confirmed the numbers that they have. The inventory control is very simple as well, so you can see the numbers over on the right-hand side, but the color codes are consistent with those scribe lines as I described. And the torque values, you can choose which torque you want to use. They're available, but like I said, most of us that have been using Sagittal first and the SLX for some time, I originally bought some high torque and low torque brackets, and quite frankly, they're still sitting in the drawer. We just don't need them. And again, here's just the mandibular. So this is just a comparison of other torque values that are on the market. The sales team have these if you want to look at them, but just to show you that the torque values are pretty much down the middle of the fairway, if you will. Nothing's extreme in either direction. And this is what the clear brackets look like in the mouth. They literally, are almost invisible from 2 feet away. It's remarkable. So because of all the curves and everything, they just kind of disappear on the tooth. It's really nice. And so we focus on 12-month treatment times because that's what patients want. And so between Sagittal first, brackets and wires that are manufactured properly, we get there with all of our patients. So in my office, if we average out all the patients, we're down to about 13 and a half months overall. The vast majority of patients are finishing in under a year, which is really nice. So thank you very much.